Hello, and welcome to Creative Practice with Greg Zabel. Today we're answering the question, what are the bass basics for upright? Bass Basics is a page I put together to remind students about the notes of the bass clef and hand positioning. Today we'll apply those tips to the upright bass as well as go over some exercises for practical application. Before we actually get to the page, let's focus on right hand tone production. Take a look at this photo of the Dizzy Gillespie Big Band. In it you'll see many legendary jazz musicians, but let's focus on Ray Brown playing the bass. You see that with his right hand, he's using his index and middle fingers together as one big finger to pull through the string and let the next string stop his motion. We're going to take this approach as well. Let's start with our thumb braced on the side of the fingerboard, and let's strike through the G string. Let's play 4 quarter notes on the G string, each time passing through the string, letting the D string stop our motion. 1, 2, 3, 4. As we continue descending onto the D string, our left hand is going to have to come in to mute the G string that we just left, because we only want one string ringing at a time. So that'll be like, almost like playing drums. I'm thinking about syncing my hands up together so that when I strike the string, that's when I mute the string with the left hand. This process of adding the left hand to touch the string we just left to mute it will continue as we descend to the D string, to the A string, and to the E string. Here's 4 quarter notes on all strings descending from the G string to the E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the E string, of course, there's no string for us to fall back on to stop our motion. So what I usually end up doing is almost a rotational motion where I keep my thumb braced against the side of the fingerboard still, but I'm kind of rolling around the string almost. Still passing through it, but with this rotational motion. Now let's play the exercise descending from the G string to the E string. We'll play 2 measures of the E string, and then we'll ascend back up to the G string. Grand total of 8 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice every once in a while you'll hear the clicking of the string against the fingerboard. That's okay to me, it's part of the tradition. I've heard that on a lot of records that I love, so it's okay when you do it too. This 2 fingers working together approach works really well when you're playing quarter notes, and it works on a wide range of tempos, but every once in a while it's time to take a solo and we're going to want to play 8th notes. At that time, I recommend that we separate the 2 fingers, and for me it's most natural to think about this motion, having the middle finger pass through the string first, and then it's followed by the index finger. So I almost think about it like ding, 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 ding. One big motion, but then I've got the 2 separate small motions. So let's do the same exercise working from the G string down to the E string. We'll play the E string twice, and then we'll work back up to the G string. Grand total of 8 measures, and I'm going to be thinking about the middle finger starting on each string so that the index finger can naturally follow through afterwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mostly I'm trying to think about my fingers being parallel to the string. I'm getting a lot of flesh in contact with the string, so we get a nice warm fat tone. But sometimes, particularly when I'm ascending, I find it comfortable to approach perpendicular, almost like I'm playing the electric bass. It feels more comfortable to me when I'm ascending perpendicularly, but I try to be parallel when I'm descending. Experiment and find out what's most comfortable for you. Now let's try triplets. I'm still going to start with my middle finger on each string and allow the index finger to follow naturally. let's do the same 8 measure exercise from G to E and from E to G. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was still starting each string with the middle finger, but for this subdivision, I find it more comfortable to stay perpendicular just about the entire time so that the fingers stay out of the way of each other. Now let's go through those subdivisions again, but this time it'll be G, D, A, E, E, A, D, G. It'll be a 2-bar phrase. First, we'll do quarter notes, then we'll do straight eighth notes, then we'll do triplets. Let's see if we can go one right into the next. 1, 2, 3, 4. You might have noticed when we play quarter notes, it's exactly as we talked about before. When we played straight eighth notes, it's exactly as we talked about before. But this time, when we played 3 triplets on each string, I played the middle finger as the first finger on each string. So it feels very natural for me to go from middle, index, middle, and I just follow through, let the middle play the next string. Index, middle, same thing. Middle, index, middle, middle, index, middle. Now then when we get to the second measure, we have E, and I'm gonna do straight alternation. So after I just arrived on the E string, I just did middle, index, middle. Now it's index, middle, index, and continue on. Straight alternation onto the A string. Here again, I approach at a perpendicular angle. Middle, index, middle, straight alternation to the D string. Index, middle, index, and lastly onto the G string, middle, index, middle, and the final note I played was with the index finger. Again, this is what feels most comfortable to me, but experiment and see what you like. Now let's talk about the left hand. This is finger number 1, this is finger number 2, and this is finger number 4. The 2 fingers working together. There is a point on the bass where you'll want your fingers to work independently and actually get the thumb involved, but in general, when you're in between half and fifth positions, you'll want to think of the 3rd and 4th fingers together as one fingertip. The reason why is that it gives you 3 equidistant fingertips from the 1st to 2nd and from 2nd to 4th. And between the 1st and 2nd is a half step, between the 2nd and 4th is a half step, which means between 1st and 4th is a whole step. This relationship will exist all over the bass in multiple positions and of course on every string. In general, when you're using the 1st finger, you're using 1 finger. When you're using the 2nd finger, you're using 2 fingers. The 1st finger will remain behind to support the 2nd finger on the string. And when you're using the 4th finger, you're using 4 fingers because it's the weakest on my hand, probably yours too, and they're all pressing on the string to get a good tone. When you place the left hand, you want to keep in mind a curved C shape. You want every knuckle to be bent the same way. You don't want any collapses like this. This will allow for when you approach the string, the very tip of the finger is pushing down onto the string, which is pushing down onto the fingerboard, giving us a good, solid, clean tone. In addition, you want to keep your thumb centered on the back of the neck. That's going to allow for space between your hand and the instrument. You ought to be able to stick an expo marker in that space. It doesn't matter how young you are or how small your hand is. If you're big enough to be playing the double bass, you're big enough to keep that space. This first exercise will get the sound of a half step in our ears. And if you can remember the movie Jaws, when the shark was approaching, it sounded something like. And as it got closer to the victim, the music crescendoed. We're going to take that kind of dynamic approach to this exercise, and we'll start out mezzo piano, crescendo to forte, and then decrescendo back to mezzo piano. And the fingering numbers will be 0, 1, 1, 2. When you do that, make sure that you leave the first finger down, and 2, 4. Again, leaving the first and second fingers down behind the 4th finger. We can apply this to every string, and we get an exercise that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also worth doing is a chromatic scale on each string. For purposes of demonstration, I'll just be doing it on the G string, but you should try this on all 4 strings. We have the open G string, then we have our half steps. We'll add fingers 1, 2, 4. Should sound like a half step between each of the 3 fingertips. Then the very next half step, you can use your second finger, the distance between the second and fourth finger, as a kind of marker. You can imagine where your first finger will shift to. And again, we'll do 1, 2, 4. Same thing, we'll shift the first finger up and play 1, 2, 4. One more time, we got first finger. And at this point on the bass, it's time for the third finger to act independently, so we can do 1, 2, 3. And that final note is the octave harmonic on the G string. So it brings us from G to G. Altogether, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And anything that you can do ascending, you need to be able to do descending. So on the way down, we'll start with all 3 fingers down and we'll reveal the fingers underneath. One, two, three, 4. The last exercise will get the sound of a whole step into our ears. So we'll start in half position when our first finger is a half step above the open string. And we'll play the first few notes of Happy Birthday sounding like this. Then we'll shift our first finger to where our fourth finger just was, and we'll have this. It should sound like Happy Birthday all the way up. Same thing. First finger goes to where the fourth finger just was. And if you find it helpful to do what I'm doing, you can use your right hand finger to kind of mark your spot on the bass, because unless you're a very beginner, we don't want to use tape or anything like that to mark our positions. We should be going by the feel of the instrument itself and the pitch. We are using our ears to get in tune. And then first finger goes where the fourth finger just was. And maybe that's where we'll stop for that exercise. So altogether, without stopping, it sounds like 1, 2. And you should also do this in first position when the first finger is a whole step above the open string. 1, 2. Try the Sports Center variation where the note under the fourth finger starts first. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. When you're using these 2 fingers to pluck quarter notes especially, keep in mind that the first bass of jazz was the tuba. So you're trying to get the sound, the power that one tubist can get. Or if you're coming from the orchestral world, some orchestras have 8 bassists in their sections, and when they grab a pizzicato note in unison, they do it in a different style, they do it in a different spot on the bass, and they make a lot of times it's a grand gesture to pull the sound from the instrument, but it's the sound of 8 bassists together and it really fills the hall. We want to be that 8-person bass section in the jazz ensemble. A lot of times when it's the shout chorus of a song, or other times when I want to go into overdrive, I'm not keeping my motion so localized. I'll open up a little bit, and I'm using bigger muscle groups. I'm thinking about the elbow and getting this kind of swing going here. It depends on the tempo, how much the undulation actually happens. But if you think about it like when a breakdancer does the worm, if they want to go forward, they'll start the worm at the feet, and here on my arm, that'll be the elbow. So it's creating this whip-like motion that is transferring to the fingertips, and that's what's passing through the string, giving me the power. So here's a chorus of a blues in G, and I'll try to demonstrate this overdrive that I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're pulling with more force, but always be careful not to hurt yourself. I hope you'll play through these exercises and apply the techniques we talked about to the pieces that you're studying. Thanks so much for watching, and have fun being creative.